So TEP, this was what we affectionately called it, which stands for the Traveling Exhibit Partnership Project. This was an experimental pilot project which ultimately explored the cooperative planning, development, fabrication, and circulation of traveling exhibits by 5 like-minded community museums from across southern Ontario. It was the brainchild of Ken Doherty from what was then the Peterborough Centennial Museum and Archives, and Kathy Pinkowski, who was the exhibit consultant, because back in the mid-90s, it was felt, and it was, there was a lack of affordable, good quality traveling exhibits available to small community museums. So originally, it was a 2-phase project, and the initial phase was the partner institutions met regularly to share our experiences, our resources, and to participate in professional development activities under the guidance of a project coordinator. And the end result would be the planning and design of a quality temporary exhibit for each phase. And then, of course, phase 2 was going to be the fabrication of the exhibits and then the circulation to our partner sites and then for broader distribution. There was a matching map grant of $15,000, and this was done under the Access and Service Project category. So the 90s, when this was conceived, we've decided that we were going to try and find traveling exhibits that met our needs as a mid-sized community museum. So when we I met our needs, it meant that we were going to design them so that they were easy to install. Think community museum, 1 older lady and 1 younger lady putting up exhibits, moving them around, have proper installation manuals, make sure that the crates were not huge crates, that you could be able to store these crates, and maybe even incorporate the crates into the design of the exhibit. And so that was all part of the needs that we wanted to do. And you know, back in the 90s, and this is going to probably ring true even still today, institutions were under pressure to develop audiences and provide more attractive and revenue-generating programming. Nothing's changed. So this idea was to create a model and document the process so other community museums interested could try to establish the similar project. And from what we heard from Norma yesterday, there is someone doing that, so that's great. So establishing partnerships was an important part of the project. So the getting together and sharing our resources was just as important as the end product. And by creating these traveling exhibits, it would become cost-effective because we're going to share in the bulk buying, the using the equipment, and the expertise that was available at each of the partner sites. So originally there were 5 partner sites. In the initial phase, 1 partner dropped out and was replaced with another site. And then it was decided that if another partner resigned from the project, it would depend where we were in the project at that time, whether we would replace the partner. Well, sure enough, halfway through phase 1, one of our partners dropped out, so we were down from 5 now to 4, and we decided not to replace that because we were so far along in the process. We picked the partners because we all had similar mandates. We had similar areas of exhibit interest. We were comparable in size and staff numbers and had demonstrated skill in exhibition development. So we kind of knew what we were doing was what that line meant. And we were entrepreneurial and had experimental attitudes. So you had to kind of think outside the box with that one. And of course, we were interested in cooperative ventures. So the project had to have Board of Management approval because of the additional finances that were required to support the grant application, plus the additional work time required by staff. The meeting schedule wasn't too taxing, but it was felt that each site had to be represented at the meeting. So when there was a meeting, you had to have a staff member, whether it was the contact person for it, there had to be a staff there because the meetings were generally a day long. We had a lot to pack in, and this was an opportunity where lots of decisions were being made, and it required this staff representation. Each site took a turn hosting and chairing the meeting so that it shared travel time. And then it was also an experience for staff who had not had this opportunity to chair meetings yet to gain that skill set. So as I said, it was initially a grant of $15,000 from MAP, and it was a matching funding for the first stage. So each partner was asked to commit human and physical resources to complete their component of the project, which was felt to be 3 months of staff time, and to commit to a financial resource that would originally apply to the current development of temporary exhibits at their site, which was $1,000. So we each put in $1,000, and then that was matched, of course, by, what you do in a MAP grant. Anyways, phase 1. So the phases were, of course, the planning and design, and we ended up adding the third phase. We thought that we could do it all in the 2 phases, but we had to do it into the 3 phases. And it took over 6 years, because each time you had to wait for the MAP grant to hear if you got the funding for the MAP grant. So of course, phase 1 was $1,000. Phase 2 was a little more. You had $5,000 to contribute, but with that you could put in and get sponsorship. So with our exhibit, Sitting Pretty, we got Mr. Reuter, the plumbing guy, to sponsor our exhibit. And then phase 3 was the development of the traveling kit, along with the crate production and education kit, and that was a $2,000 commitment that we had to put in. So how it worked was we tried to come up with a theme. We wanted to have a theme with the idea that each partner would create one component of that theme. So if one of the bigger sites wanted to rent all 4 exhibits, we could put them together and they would be, it would all work. Well, we'd come up with a theme, and you'd go back to your site and you'd try to find the artifacts to support that theme. And we'd meet the next time, and nobody could make this theme, and nobody could make that theme, and nobody could make this theme. And because we tried to decide on the theme, and of course we came up with Secrets was our first theme, but it just didn't work. It just didn't work because each individual site did not have the artifacts supported. So that's when the decision was made to make 4 different exhibits. So exhibit proposals were developed with the supporting artifacts and photographs from your collection, and it was decided that we would standardize as much as we could to take advantage of the cheaper costs. So each partner was responsible for some part of fabrication of the exhibit to help with the standardization. So Peterborough looked after the text panels, and so developing and designing the text panels and coming up with the way that they would be displayed. Guelph, we looked after building all the cases for all 4 exhibits. And then Welland looked after the audio component of the exhibits. It was decided that each exhibit would have an audio component, so that meant booking studio recording time and coming up with what we were going to use to do the audio. And no, it wasn't 8-track players. And then Perry Sound did the crates and cozies. So again, coming up with a way to build different crates for each site and what type of the cozies we called them, because they're up in Perry Sound where the shipping world is and all the boating. They worked actually with one of the manufacturers that made boat covers, and we made our cozies that covered our cases and our text panels with these cozies. So it was a unique design. So a big part of it was the professional development. It was felt that it had to have professional development for the staff, because how else would we learn from this? So with site visits, we saw behind the scenes at all our sites and viewed, of course, all the exhibits. We had a text and graphic design workshop, which included writing styles. We had a workshop on crates titled Crates I Have Known, Loved, and Hated. And then we also had workshop on design considerations for traveling exhibits, which included artifact protection, portability, standardization of cases and panels. And these workshops were all led by our project coordinator, which was Kathy Pankowski. So did it work? Yes. There were 4 traveling exhibits created and circulated across Canada. 3 of those exhibits still exist today, and the project coordinator was vital part of this process. So this person, Kathy, she was the hub of the wheel. She organized our training sessions, made site visits, ensured that there was a clear and constant flow of information among members, so she made us talk amongst ourselves. Served as a resource person in all the exhibit planning stage. She actually edited all the exhibit text, because we did have an editor, but the editor wasn't experienced in exhibit text. So when she had a first go at all our text, she actually took out some really key components. So Kathy went, no, 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 no. So she actually took on and edited all the exhibit text, and we affectionately called her the Chief Nag, because she was really instrumental in helping the sites that were having difficulty meeting their deadlines. Now, what didn't work? The staff commitment to 3 months. So think, taking 3 months out of your work, and it's just been hard enough to be here for 2 days, let alone 3 months out of your work to work on this project. And that did not work at all, especially when the smaller sites, we were fortunate at our site, we had 2 people dedicated to the project. So between the 2 of us, we could make it work. If one couldn't do something, the other could. But some of the other sites, it was just them, and their other day-to-day workload that they had to do got in the way. So that's where Kathy really, as the project coordinator, came in and was able to help out. So she would actually go to their sites and second them into a room and work with them to make them get what they needed to do to get done. And at least each site had at least 1 staff turnover, all right? So you're working away and also, oh, I got a new job, bye, good luck with your project. And then, of course, we'd have to wait for the new person to get hired, and then the new person would come in, and we'd have to get them up to speed and get the buy-in too, right? It was important to have the buy-in to be able to get this project off the ground. And so that was quite something. Every site had some type of turnover. And the next thing that was virtually impossible was if a meeting got canceled. So if the meeting that we were supposed to meet got canceled, we could not, as a group, find another meeting date. It was just virtually impossible because, of course, back then there wasn't Skype. So it would have worked, I think, today with our technology we have now. So for the beginning of phases 2 and the beginning of phases 3, we set our meeting schedule for the year. And so those all got into everybody's date book, and you tried to, you had to adhere to it. You just had to. There were so many decisions that were being made. And then in the third phase of the project, MAP cut our funding for our project coordinator. And this was probably where we almost needed it the most, because these were the final details, and we almost fell apart. We did, because there was nobody there leading us, nobody there, cracking the whip, being the nag. But Kathy actually stepped up and volunteered her own time to get us back on track, because it was sort of like the next stage that a lot of us didn't have the experience with. Sure, we all knew how to build exhibits, we all knew how to do that, but now how do you travel them, and how do you do that? So would I do this again, and what would I do different? Yes, I would do this again within a heartbeat. We actually, because of the experience we learned from it, developed our own traveling exhibit. We did John McCrae, just like Peterborough developed their own vaudeville exhibit, because you got the skill set to be able to do it. And as I said before, the way technology has changed now, I think it would be way easier to do in a partnership, way easier. You could Skype your meetings, right? You didn't have to take your time to travel, right? I was traveling to Welland and traveling to Peterborough and traveling to Parry Sound. When we did the Parry Sound meetings, we tried to have 2-day meetings up there and stayed overnight, because just from the distance that you had to go. Also, too, what I would probably do is work within my own museum network, develop relationship with local resources. So from that, we had built the cases. So now we have a fantastic relationship with the case builder in our area, and we've used them ever since to do all our casework. But what would have been neat was to have that graphic design and text panel connection. That sort of thing would have been good to have. So if we developed within our own area, our own museum network area, and created an exhibit that could possibly travel around to each site, then we would have it, but there would only be one exhibit. But the idea of having the 4 different exhibits, that was our exhibit schedule for 1 and 2 years, right? We each had and shared each other's exhibits so that you could kind of work out the bugs before it went out on the road. We did secure sponsorship for our exhibit, but we probably went in too low. like $5,000, that was a piece of cake. And think of the sponsorship that Mr. Reuter got that went across Canada and back for 11 years, 12 years. And so probably what I would do differently next time would be to up the sponsorship and, can we have $5,000? He's like, give us $15,000, you know, that sort of thing. So, so that's probably what I would do differently. And that probably too would help reduce our wait time for those MAP grants, to find out if we got the MAP grant each time, because that, you know, we would literally get everything in a binder and it would sit on a shelf for 6, 7, 8 months until we would hear whether we got the funding, and then pull the binder back out. Okay, guys, here we go, next stage. And then, of course, a project coordinator is necessary. So I looked up online to see what was a successful partnership looked like, and we had all these categories here. It certainly fit mutual benefit. All our partners felt the benefits of the relationship, and we worked together to create all these components of our exhibits, and we needed each other to make it happen. There was the flexibility. Successful partnerships are found on mutual respect and commitment to agreed upon principles, and we worked this together. We had a common vision. Our goals were clearly defined and shared, and 4 traveling exhibits were developed and traveled. And of course, we had board support, totally endorsed and fully supported by all our boards of management. And of course, with the structural support, we were coordinated through a project coordinator who was vital to the success of the project. We also had constructive problem solving, because we each had to work together to figure out how we could make these components work. And we were learning, we had workshop and training. I know my skill set for doing exhibits improved because of this experience. And then of course the enjoyment. We had fun, there were some laughs, there were some tears, there were some frustrations, but the fun and the enjoyment of the success of the project outweighed it all. And I was very proud of all of these exhibits that we created. And of course, creating a toilet exhibit, it becomes your claim to fame. And every month, I limit myself to 2 mornings a week. I go out and give a talk on the history of the toilet. But I wouldn't hesitate to do this again. And the neat thing too was the partnerships that we created within this museum community. I pick up the phone and contact them all the time for help. So that's the benefit of having a partnership and creating these exhibits together. It can work, it can do, and the model is there with MAP. MAP has the model. It's probably on a binder on a shelf somewhere, but we documented the whole process, and so that it's a model that every one of you could do. So go for it, do it. Make some nice mid-sized community museum traveling exhibits. Andrew, thank you.